जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राचार्य असुत्र सत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अबे चरना रविंद्र भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्री सदी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। नवदीप धाम की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय। यमुना माई की जय। श्रीमती तुलसी देवी की जय। सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bir Krishna Goswaminiti Namne Namo Hamsa Nikashaya Prabhupada Priyate Shuddha Shuddhinishtabhem Tasya Vakyanuvadini. So welcome again all viewers on Mayapur TV, ISKCON Sydney, YouTube, and I think it is Facebook also, I'm not sure. For this evening Srimad Bhagavatam class, and we are going to be continuing from the episode of the Narayan Kavach, where Lord Indra gets his Narayan Kavach from the heavenly planet priest Vishwarupa, and then he ends up killing Vishwarupa, who is a Brahmin and his spiritual master. So we're going to be seeing the result of someone who's committed an offense against a Vaishnava, obviously killing a Brahmin, and then killing a spiritual master. Because when Vishwarupa teaches Lord Indra how to achieve the Narayan Kavacha, then he becomes Lord Indra's spiritual master. So then Lord Indra doesn't just kill a Brahmin, Lord Indra kills a spiritual master too. So we're going to see the aftermath of it. Just give me a second. I will put away my mridanga and I will be with you in a second. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay, so I'm back, and we're going to be continuing from there. So what had happened was Vishwarupa's father was Twasta, who was another Brahmin. He conducted a yagna in order to get some enemies of Lord Indra out, because he was very unhappy that his son got killed by Lord Indra. Lord Indra killed Vishwarupa, obviously, because Vishwarupa was offering oblations in the yagna on behalf of the demons, because the demons were related to him from his mother's side. Although Vishwarupa was related to the demigods also from his father's side. So he was offering oblations on both sides. And Indra found out, Lord Indra, and he was afraid that he was giving the demons extra power, so that his throne in the heavenly kingdom was felt threatened. So he killed Vishwarupa, by basically beheaded or decapitated his 3 heads. He had 3 heads. So so Twasta, the father of Vishwarupa, did the yagna, and Vritrasura came out of the yagna, and he happened to be someone who was actually a devotee. But Lord Indra considered him to be an enemy, a threat to his kingdom, heavenly planets yet again. So they were trying to find a way to defeat Vritrasura, and Vritrasura was undefeatable basically. He was huge. In the last class we had the description of how fearsome he was. So nobody else could kill him other than the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, or at least he would have the solution on how to destroy him. So the demigods went and said some beautiful prayers to Lord Hari, and then Lord Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, told them that the best way to kill this demon was through this Narayan Kavach, this potency of the Narayan Kavach, which we had originally talked about, that Lord Indra had managed to attain. And the secret of the Narayan Kavach is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 8. So if you want to know about the Narayan Kavach, not the Narsingha Kavach that we wear, the Narayan Kavach, just read Canto 6, Chapter 8. So anyway, so Lord Hari, Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, told them that this Narayan Kavacha will be protect, or will be the cause of, the potency of the Narayan Kavach will be able to destroy Vritrasura through this sage called Dadichi. Now Dadichi had practiced, he was a sage, and he was a Muni sage. He had practiced austerities for so many years, and he had attained the Narayan Kavach also. And Lord Hari said that because of this Narayan Kavach, his bones the bones in the body, we've got bones in our hands, in our spine, our ribs. So these bones that Dadichi had was basically invincible, very strong. So he said to the demigods, go and ask for Dadichi's body. In other words, Sage Dadichi would have to give up his body, in other words, die, and then hand over his bones to the demigods. And his bones obviously has the potency of Narayan Kavacha, and the Supreme Lord himself, Lord Krishna himself. The power and the potency would that those bones would be designed as a weapon by Vishwakarma, who's the architect of and he designs all sorts of things and weapons and things for the heavenly planets, the demigods. So he would design this thunderbolt weapon, and that would be used against Vritrasura. And and then Vritrasura would die. So we are at that point now. We'll continue from there. Let's see. Let's try chapter 1. So we are on Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 10. And I'll be reading from there, straight from there. Let me just adjust my camera a little bit so that I can put my book there. So, right. So Sri Sukadev Goswami, who's reciting the story, this pastime. Actually, this pastime had happened after the end of Satyug. The end of Satyug and the beginning of Treta. So it is in between the two yugas, or like on the boundary. One is finishing and the other one is beginning. And this great battle happened between the demigods and Vritrasura. So Sri Sukadev Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, the cause of cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of the onlooking demigods. In other words, Lord Krishna, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, told them about the Dichi and the bones, go and get it and all those things. He asked the help of the Ashwini Kumars also. And he said, he asked for them to get the help of Ashwini Kumars. And after that, he disappeared, after telling them the solution to their problems. Then Sukadev Goswami continues, O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Dadichi, the son of Atharva. He was very liberal, and when they begged him to give his body, he at once partially agreed. Partially agreed means he had a bit of a joke with them, he was just like playing a little bit. He said no, or he was saying, why are you asking a religious person to give up his body? Because he was going to agree, obviously, but he was just having a joke with them. So he at once partially agreed. He didn't really totally agree. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly, so he joked with them. He jokingly spoke as follows. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? So he's telling the demigods that I will be in so much pain. You asking me to leave my body. Why would you do that? In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body. Struggling to keep his body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of his own possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? So he kind of knew that Lord Vishnu had sent them. So the demigods then replied to Dadichi. They said, "O exalted Brahman, pious persons like you, whose activities are praiseworthy, are very kind and affectionate to people in general." So they are saying that you are a pious soul and you want to, for the betterment of the living entities in whole. Basically, they're trying to protect their throne, the heavenly planets. But in saying that, the demigods are in charge of so many functions that maintain living entities. So if the demigods positions are preserved, then obviously the living entities are in a good place or a better place. So let me see. I'm a bit scared because my phone charge isn't so much. Anyway, so right. So then, so it was, they were trying to tell him that it is in your favor to give up the body, because you are basically preserving the living entities. So they are saying, the demigods, "Oh, exalted Brahman, pious persons like you, whose activities are praiseworthy, are very kind and affectionate to people in general. What can't such pious souls give for the benefit of others? They can give everything, including their bodies. Those who are too self-interested, begging something from others, not knowing others' pain. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity." So the great sage Dadichi then said, "Just to hear from you about religious principles, I refuse to offer my body at your request. And now, although my body is extremely dear to me, I must give it up for your better purposes, since I know that it will leave me today or tomorrow." So Dadichi kind of knew what was going on, and he also knew that it was an instruction by Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, that it was his demand for his body. So if you can imagine, if Lord Krishna comes and says, "I demand your body," would you be able to give your body, your material body, would you be able to die, basically? That remains to be seen. But that reminds me of a story of the gopis, when Krishna, feigned, like pretended to have a stomachache. And he said, the cure for my stomachache is the dust from the feet of my devotees. And they went around, he was in Dwarka at that time, and they went around asking everyone in Dwarka, and no one offered the dust of their feet, because they said, we'll go to hell. Narad Muni went and asked for everybody, like requested everybody for the dust of their feet, and nobody was prepared to give the dust of the lotus feet of their feet to the Lord Krishna, because they were all afraid of going to hell. So it is very important that we never touch our feet to our chanting beads, even, because that's sacred. That's Lord Krishna himself. And so that is why we are told never to touch our feet, never to put the beads on the ground, never to put your chanting beads on the ground, never to take it to the bathroom, toilets, never to have the chanting beads touch their feet, because it's Lord Krishna. And here no one is prepared to give Lord Krishna the dust of their feet, because they're all scared of going to hell. I remember when we were doing parikrama in Govardhan, we were strictly instructed not to place our foot on any part of Govardhan Hill. And Govardhan Hill is huge, humongous, like for us, because we are walking around it, right? We are only tiny people compared to the huge hill. And we were not allowed to put a step on any of the particles of Govardhan, because that's Lord Krishna himself. So we had to remain on the footpath all the time. So here, the gopis, they were asked, can you offer the dust of your feet to Lord Krishna, because he is suffering with severe pain, and this is the solution. And the gopis said they didn't even think twice. They just like shook their feet and lifted the skirt or the cloth, and quickly shook the feet and gave the dust straight away. And they were asked, what if you go to hell? Aren't you scared to go to hell? And they said, no. For Lord Krishna's happiness, we are prepared to even go there, as long as he is okay. we don't mind giving the dust of our feet. So that is a pure devotee. That is that's devotional service. That's the love for Lord Krishna, and that you're prepared to go to hell. So here Dadichi is prepared to give up his body because that is how devoted he is. It's so austere, and so that is why the power, the potency in Narayan Kavach is in him. He had achieved it, and the bones of his body is so strong that it is just like Lord Narayan himself, equivalent to Lord Narayan, the potency of Narayan Kavach. So he said, now I must give up my body, since I know that this body is going to leave me today or tomorrow anyway. And that is a fact. Our bodies, we will be losing our bodies anyway. We are all getting older by the day, and one day it's going to leave us anyway. So what's there to feel attached to, actually? That is the Diji's teachings. But I don't know if we can persevere in that area. We can try. My phone is not charging. I don't know why. I'm a bit scared that I might lose. Yeah. Anyway, we'll hope for the best. So he says, "Oh demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher cause of religious principles or eternal glory is certainly pitied even by immovable beings." So he says, if I don't give my body, then I shall be pitied. I mean, in Srila Prabhupada's purport is quite interesting. He says, in this regard, a very exalted example was set by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Concerning the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we offer our less respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He's left his household alive, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver fallen souls who are put into illusion by material energy. To accept sannyas means to commit civil suicide, basically. But sannyas is compulsory for at least every Brahman, every first-class human being. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very young and beautiful wife and a very affectionate mother. Indeed, the affectionate dealings of his family members were so pleasing that even the demigods could not expect such happiness at home. Nevertheless, for the deliverance of fallen souls of the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and left home when he was only 24 years old. Taking sannyas at the age of 24 is, can't imagine. He lived in a very strict life as a sannyasi, refusing all bodily comforts. Similarly, his disciples, the 6 Goswamis, were ministers who held exalted positions in society, but they also left everything to join the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Goswamis left their very comfortable lives as ministers, zamindars, and learned scholars, and joined Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement just to show mercy to the fallen souls of the world, accepting very humble lives as mendicants, wearing no more than loincloths and torn quilts. It's called Kopi Nakanta. They lived in Vrindavan and followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order to excavate Vrindavan's lost glories. Similarly, everyone else with the materially comfortable conditions in this world should join the Krishna consciousness movement to elevate the fallen souls. In this regard, I just had a conversation with one devotee after the Radha Ashtami that I held Abhishek in my house. And I was told, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing an Abhishek in your house when you could just as easily attend Mayapur TV, and you are a servant of Radha Gopinath? So obviously you should be watching Radha Gopinath. Why are you doing Abhishek here? And my response to that was, I'm doing the Abhishek as a service to Sri Radha Gopinath, because there is some preaching going on in the west of Sydney, and they are this is the true spirit of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. It is our duty to spread Krishna consciousness and give the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Krishna's names, the holy names, wherever we go. So there are a lot of grihasthas in west of Sydney who cannot make it to North Sydney, and they are wanting Abhishek Prasadam. And so I explained that it is not in glorification of myself or do things in a grand way. It is basically I'm trained in the temple anyway, and so we are used to having a grand celebration in the temple. So I did it in that spirit to give that flavor that you can have the temple in your own house. You don't need to, especially in the challenging times of Corona. You can still have a presentation, or not really a presentation. It is called service and worship of Lord Krishna, their lordships. They basically in service to Radha Gopinath, none other than Radha Gopinath, because Radha Gopinath are the deities of Sydney, presiding deities of Sydney, Australia, is Sri Radha Gopinath. And we all are part of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So that was my explanation, but that is my reason that we must all join Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement in any way possible. So the Goswamis here did the same thing. I mean, we are doing it in a very tiny way, very, very tiny way, very small. But if I can, we were able to give Abhishek Prasadam to a lot of devotees out there. I think it was about 140 odd people, possibly. This is 140 households. So each household would have few people in there. So definitely more than 140, maybe 300. If you multiply that by 2, at least 2 per household, that would be 300 odd people who were able to get Radha Ashtami Prasadam. So this is what we all should do, where possible. If you have experiences or are fairly experienced in the movement, even if you are not, teach people to chant, take up Krishna consciousness, distribute prasadam, distribute books. We are very strong here in Sydney with distribution of books. I always admire our devotees at the temple, the brahmacharis. They are fantastic book distributors. It's all going on. So preaching must go on wherever we go, and take the temple with you wherever you go. That is in strictly speaking the spirit of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's his request to each one of us. I remember Jayapataka Maharaj when he was doing his initiations in Radha Gopinath temple years ago, and I was watching the initiation, and as he was giving the initiation to his disciples and he was handing over the beads, he was saying, from now onwards your name is going to be such and such, right? But before he even said that, before he even gave the name, he had a question and a request, a humble request to make to his own disciple. He said, will you help me preach to the world? Will you help Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement in preaching the glories of the holy name? So that was this is what I remember Jayapataka Maharaj said to each one of his disciples before initiation, will you help me preach? And they all agreed yes. And that's what they are doing, I can see. And it is a little pleasure in my enjoyment. It is a little blessing, fortunate blessing for me, that I can facilitate something wherever I am. So that was very nice. And here Dadichi is I mean, that is very small service that I did. Dadichi is giving his entire body so that his bones can be used for the betterment of the living entities. Okay, so we will continue from there. So it says here, if one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. Continuing from there, this body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. So this is what Dadichi is saying. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. So Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Dadichi Muni, the son of Atharva, thus resolved to give his body to the service of the demigods. Just like that. He placed himself, the spirit soul, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'm just trying to think if it's my charge is working. It's fast diminishing. Just give me a second. Okay. So he placed himself, the spirit soul, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way gave up his gross material body made up of the 5 elements. So he gave it up. Dadichi Muni controlled his senses, life force, and mind intelligence became absorbed in trance. Thus he cut off all his material bonds just like that. And he could not perceive how his material body became separated from his self. And then thereafter King Indra firmly took up the thunderbolt manufactured by Vishwakarma. So they took his body, extracted the bones, and then gave it to Vishwakarma, and Vishwakarma designed a thunderbolt weapon from the bones of Dadichi. And charged with the exalted power of Dadichi Muni and enlightened by the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Indra rode on the back of his carrier. His carrier is the elephant, and the elephant's name is Airavat. So Airavat surrounded by all the demigods, while the great sages offered him praise. So they get ready for battle. Thus he shone very beautifully, pleasing the 3 worlds as he rode off to kill Vritrasura. So then my dear King Parikshit, as Rudra being very angry at Antaka, Yamraj, had formally run towards Antaka to kill him, just like that, Indra angrily with great force attacked Vritrasura, who was surrounded by the leaders of the demoniac armies. Therefore, at the end of Satya Yuga and beginning of Treta Yuga, a fierce battle took place between the demigods and the demons on the bank of Narmada. Bank of Narmada, Narmada is a river, sacred river. So here in Narmada does not mean Narmada river in India. Actually, let's look at the explanations. It does not mean the Narmada in India. The 5 sacred rivers in India are Ganga, Yamuna, Narmada, Kaveri, and Krishna, all celestial. Like the Ganga river, Narmada river also flows in the higher planetary system. So it is not the one in India. Narmada is a river, but it also flows in the higher planetary system, just like Ganga flows in the higher planetary systems. So the battle between the demigods and the demons took place in the higher planets. So the words Prathama Yuga means in the beginning of the first millennium, that is to say in the beginning of Vaivasvata Manvantara. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, who each live for 71 millenniums. The 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali, the 4 yugas, so we are present in the Manvantara of Vaivasvata Manu, who is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Imam Viva Swate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivashvan Manave Praha. This is Bhagavad Gita 4.1, chapter 4, text 1. We are in the 28th millennium of the Vaivasvat Manu. But this fight took place in the beginning of Vaivasvat Manu's first millennium. So we are in 28, but it happened in the first millennium. One can historically calculate how long ago the battle took place, since each millennium consists of 4.3 million years, and we are now in 28th millennium, some 120,000, 120.4 million years have passed. That's quite a long number. It's very hard to even read. Took place on the bank of the river Narmada. So it's a long time ago. So Sukadev Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj, O king, when all the Asuras came into the battlefield headed by Vritrasura, they saw King Indra carrying thunderbolt and surrounded by the Rudras, Vasus, Adityas, Ashwini Kumars, Pitas, Vahinis, Maruts, Ribus, Sadhyas and Vishwadevas. Surrounded by his company, Indra shone very brightly and was intolerable to the demons. And on the demon side, there were many hundreds and thousands of demons, demi-demons. So just like we have demigods, we also have demi-demons. Yakshas, Rakshasas are man-eaters, and others like headed by Sumali, Mali, resisted the armies of King Indra. So they resisted, which even death personified can not easily overcome. Among the demons were Namuchi, Sambara, Anarva, various demons, roaring tumultuously and fearlessly like lions. These invincible demons, all dressed in golden ornaments, gave pain to the demigods. So they really gave the demigods good fight, a good battle. With weapons like clubs and bludgeons and arrows, barbed darts and mallets and lances. So armed with lances, tridents, axes, swords and demons weapons, the demons attacked from different directions and scattered the chief of all demigod armies. So the demigods were basically losing from the demons. As the stars in the sky cannot be seen when covered by dense clouds, the demigods, being completely covered by networks of arrows falling upon them one after another, could not be seen. So too many arrows on the demigods that you could not even see the demigods. That's how fierce the battle was. So we're gonna just go a bit ahead. There was lots of, and then what had happened? The showers of various weapons and arrows released to kill the soldiers of the demigods did not reach them. However, did not reach the demigods because the demigods, acting quickly, they cut the weapons into thousands of pieces. So the demigods kind of removed or destroyed their weapons. So the demigods proved to be more powerful and expert. And so this, when the soldiers of the demons commanded by Vritrasura, they saw that the soldiers of King Indra were doing quite well. Having not been injured, they were not injured. The demigods were not injured. They decided that they were going to be defeated, the demons. And so they became very afraid. And they decided to flee. Actually, basically the demons decided to flee the battle because they were losing from the demigods. And Prabhupada, in this respect, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, in his purport said, there is a Bengali saying that if a vulture curses a cow to die, the curse will not be effective. Similarly, accusations made by demoniac persons against devotees of Krishna cannot have any effect. Oh, this is quite nice. In other words, some devotees of Lord Krishna, they get attacked, because by people who are envious. They're envious because they do not want the Lord Krishna's devotees to preach the holy name or whatever it is that they are envious of. They get envious. They try to attack the devotees, but here Srila Prabhupada says that the curse will not be effective. The attack will not be effective. It says here that accusations made by demoniac persons against devotees of Krishna cannot have any effect. cannot have any effect. So it depends on how good a devotee you are. That is how pure you are. We are all struggling devotees, obviously, but we are devotees nonetheless. As we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we will be protected. So every day when we do our 16 rounds, we observe the regulative principles. Our sadhana, basically, we practice bhakti yoga. When we do our chanting, we take shelter with Lord Krishna, we are protected from any accusations made by demoniac natured persons. We are protected. Lord Krishna personally promises that he will protect his devotees. So the demigods here are devotees of Lord Krishna, and therefore the curses of the demons were futile. In that regard, I was like thinking that the demigods like Lord Indra, they are the devotees of Lord Krishna, and so Lord Krishna is protecting them and gave the weapon or gave the secret of the weapon that would kill Vritrasura. But here Vritrasura is also a devotee of Lord Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So why did he not protect Vritrasura? Why did he not protect Vritrasura? There's a difference. The demigods were taking care of the living entities, and Vritrasura, due to his nature, would have been destroying the living entities. So Lord Krishna is the ultimate protector and the maintainer. He maintains the living entities. So here it goes to show that even if you are a devotee of Lord Krishna and you are intending harm on someone, or deliberately trying to harm someone, living entities, then obviously you will not be protected, even though you are promising to be Lord Krishna's devotee. So the Asurs, who are never devotees of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, lost their pride in fighting, and when they found all their endeavors futile. Leaving aside their leader in the very beginning of the fight, they decided to flee. So they decided to run because all their prowess had been taken away by the enemy. And seeing his army broken by the Asurs, Vritrasura, who was truly a great-minded hero, smiled and spoke the following words. So Vritrasura he was actually following the protocols, or he was a good guy. Basically, he was following all the rules. Let's say, put it that way, because he was a devotee of Lord Krishna. So, according to his position, Vritrasura, he was known as the hero amongst heroes. That's how good he was. There were lots of qualities, and he was praised. There was very good qualities about Vritrasura, and his qualities were being praised here. He called to the heroes of the demons, "O Viprachitti, O Namuchi, O Puloma, O Maya, Anarva, and Sambara, please hear me, do not flee." Basically, he was saying that it's the best way for a soldier to die is on the battlefield, so don't run. It is not in your, does not suit you to run and flee. To have a glorious death is to be on the battlefield. That's what he's trying to preach to the demons. And he is also giving religious principle discourse while he's doing that. He says all living entities who have taken birth in this material world must die. Surely no one in this world has found any means to be saved from death. Even Providence has not provided means to escape it. We cannot escape death. It's there. It's imminent. So under the circumstances, death being inevitable, if one can gain promotion to the higher planetary systems, and we always celebrated here by dying a suitable death, what man will not accept such a glorious death? So he's trying to tell them that if you die now, you will go to the higher planetary systems. So die the death of a hero. That's what he's trying to say. The similar advice was also given by Krishna to Arjun. He said, "My dear Arjun," the Lord said, "do not desist from fighting. If you gain victory in the fight, you will enjoy a kingdom. And even if you die, you will be elevated to the heavenly planets." So everyone should be ready to die while performing glorious deeds. A glorious person is not meant to meet death like cats and dogs. Wow. So if you want to have a lesson in death, read this chapter, Canto 6, Chapter 10. So there are two ways to meet a glorious death, and both are very rare. One is to die after performing mystic yoga, especially bhakti yoga. So that is our way of dying. A Vaishnava way of dying is that you practice bhakti yoga and then you die. And that's the best way to die. And they are obviously there are lots of people who don't do bhakti yoga and they die, and then they have the Gita part, and then that's when they read the Bhagavad Gita for the departed soul, for the departing soul. But it's kind of too late. It's better to read the Bhagavad Gita while you're still alive. It's better to chant Hare Krishna while you're still alive. It's better to do good deeds while you're still alive. If you're doing nasty stuff, things that you're not supposed to do, that is written in the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5, then obviously you're going to go to hell. So what's the use of chanting Hare Krishna if you're doing nasty stuff? So that is why we are always told, follow the rules, regulative principles, bhakti yoga, chant Krishna's names, take shelter with Krishna, do good to, living entities, be kind, be nice, and, never harm anyone. So then at the end of this life, you will meet a glorious death. That is the whole point. You will meet a glorious death. We will die eventually. So it's up to us to choose which way we want to die. Do we want a glorious death, or do we want to die like cats and dogs, because we have been behaving like cats and dogs all our lives? So one is to die after performing mystic yoga, especially bhakti yoga, by which one can control the mind and living force and dies absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's one way to die. The second is to die on the battlefield, leading the army and never showing one's back. These two kinds of deaths are recommended in the Shastra as glorious. So this is Vritrasura trying to preach to his demons. And the next chapter is dedicated to Vritrasura and his transcendental qualities. That is the kind of devotee he was. So I am going to read the summary of it because we won't have much time to read everything. So I'm just going to read the summary. So I'll read it out now. This chapter describes Vritrasura's great qualities when prominent commanders of the demons fled, not hearing Vritrasura's advice. Vritrasura condemned them all as cowards. Speaking very bravely, he stood alone to fight the demigods. When the demigods saw Vritrasura's attitude, they were so afraid that they practically fainted. Because it is one thing to fight a demon, but it is another to fight a demon who is a devotee of the Lord. And it's an amazing chapter actually, because he is a force to be reckoned with. And the demigods, when they saw Vritrasura, they basically fainted. They couldn't, and these demigods are not ordinary. They're not ordinary. Each one of them is powerful as anyone. So, and they were fainting. So you can imagine. So after that, when the demigods saw Vritrasura's attitude, they were so afraid that they practically fainted. And they were and Vritrasura, what he did, he started trampling on them. He can actually increase his size and reduce his size. So he obviously increased his size, started basically walking on them, trampling them. Unable to tolerate this, Indra, king of the demigods, he threw his club at Vritrasura. But Vritrasura was such a great hero that he easily caught the club and with his left hand and used it to beat Indra's elephant. So he used Indra's own club and hit Indra's carrier, Airavat, the elephant. And struck by the blow of Vritrasura, the elephant was pushed back 14 yards and fell with Indra on its back. So Indra fell along with the elephant. And the elephant was basically spitting blood from his mouth. And King Indra had first accepted Vishwarup as his priest and thereafter killed him. So this is what was happening. This was the result of killing a Brahmin. Even though he had done the penances, basically he had spread the reactions of killing a Brahmin to the trees, to the water, to the women and to women and the land. 1/4 of the reactions, but that didn't end there. It's still going on. So this is, killing a Brahmin the result is not good. And as we discussed in our last class, killing a Brahmin can also mean in our particular situations, because we won't go, obviously people can be killed, but killing a Brahmin can be in another way as well. It's if you falsely try to distribute to a Brahmin. In other words, you are blaspheming a devotee who has dedicated his entire life to spreading the holy names, which basically means causing shame, disreputation, humiliation, or just lying generally about them. That is like killing a Brahmin. So that is a big offense. Not just by, literally killing them, so that they lose their life fares and everything and they die. But also, blasphemy is another one too. So the result can't ever be good. It will also always be destructive, the result. And one is promoted to the planets of hell rather than heaven, just because they've done something like that. So it is always a good idea to be respectful to Vaishnavas, to those who are preaching the glories of the holy names, to those who are serving in the temple, even somebody who is doing a small service. Anyone who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra even once must be respected. So, then what Vritrasura does is he reminds Indra. He says, if one is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and depends on Lord Vishnu in every respect, then victory, opulence, and peace of mind are all inevitably available. Such a person has nothing for which to aspire in the three worlds. The Supreme Lord is so kind that he specially favors such a devotee by not giving him opulence that will hamper his devotional service. So if for those devotees who are wondering why they are not rich, that's Krishna. That's Krishna's arrangement. He has made these arrangements so that your devotional service is not hampered. Those devotees who've been around for a while, they're senior devotees who are elevated souls, sannyasis in our movement. They will tell you. They will tell you this, that certain detachment has been arranged for you. It is not that it is the bad karma that this is happening. It is basically Lord Krishna's mercy that certain bad things happen. It is meant for the elevation of the devotee. It is meant for a devotee to exceed or excel in devotional service. It can be something really small. It can be really big, big. Like we have fantastic sannyasis who are giving diksha all around the world. They are basically great souls walking on a planet right now. And in order for them to reach that stage, certain obstacles would have been removed from their life, and they would be able to narrate their personal experiences or realizations, and they will all obviously endorse this statement that's just been given in the purport, that Lord Krishna deliberately removes opulences and things that will hinder the devotional service of a certain devotee, any devotee. Obviously, not all devotees are poor or lack of opulence. There are many devotees who have the riches or opulences. It depends on their particular service. These devotees would be using their opulences or whatever they have in service of Lord Krishna. So if some particular devotee is very good in a certain devotional aspect aspect of service, they will be using their talents for that service. Or if the devotee has got certain resources, they'll be using their resources in service of Lord Krishna. If they have a lot of wealth, they'll be using their wealth on for service of Lord Krishna. So basically, everything that the devotees have or don't have is basically in service for Lord Krishna or in advancement of their devotional service. So we must never lament. That conclusion is that we don't lament our situations. We do not lament that, oh, this bad thing has happened to me, and oh Krishna, why? I'm your devotee. Why has this happened to me? No, it is happening because your destiny is to reach Lord Krishna. Your destiny is to be better in devotional service, and your destiny is on a higher platform. if you have become a devotee, if you have taken shelter with Lord Krishna, if you have taken shelter with a bona fide spiritual master. So, so here is Vritrasura, and he's saying, Vritrasura is saying, therefore I wish to give up everything for the service of Lord. Actually, Vritrasura knows he's going to be killed. He knows. And Vritrasura is aware that Lord Vishnu has sent Lord Indra with the Dadichi's bones. So he is quite aware that he is going to be dying. So, but here he is making his prayers. He says, I wish always to chant the glories of the Lord, engage in his service. So even though he's an Asur and he's a threat to Lord Indra's kingdom and his basically his kingdom, right? His throne, even though he knows he's all of that, he is still saying that I wish to give up everything in the service of the Lord. I wish to always chant the glories of the Lord and engage in his service. Now that part, I was just listening to a class of my Guru Maharaj this morning, and he was talking about the chanting of the glories of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Or was it a couple of classes before that? I'm not quite sure whether it's today or the other few days. But he was saying that the meaning of the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is basically calling out to Lord Krishna, to Srimati Radharani, to all, so that we can actually have devotional service. So we are asking for devotional service, to be engaged in devotional service. That is basically what we are saying in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra when we are chanting the Mahamantra. And this is what Vritrasura is saying here also, that he wants to chant the glories of the holy name, the Lord, and he wants to be engaged in service. And that is what we are doing also, just like Vritrasura. Whenever we chant the Mahamantra, we are asking for service, and we are begging for service. Basically, we will not get service unless and until Lord Krishna agrees. That is another thing. It is up to Lord Krishna to choose. It is up to him. It's his will. Everything happens according to his will. And it can also be that Srimati Radharani is benevolent towards us. So she has some pity towards us. So she gives us mercy. And, she takes us to Lord Krishna and says, okay, here is this particular devotee who needs service, who needs your mercy. So we can beg even Srimati Radharani for some mercy. And so this is what the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is all about. And this is what Vritrasura is saying just before he is going to be killed. Obviously, he knows he's going to be killed by Lord Indra. So he's saying, let me become unattached to my worldly family. So obviously he had a family, and make friendships with devotees of the Lord. I do not desire to be promoted to high planetary systems, even to Dhruvalok, to Brahmalok, nor do I desire unconquerable position within this material world. I have no need for such things. So what he's actually saying is, I don't want Lord Indra's position. He's not attached to any of those things. So Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O king, Vritrasura, the commander of chief, advised his lieutenants the principles of religion, but the cowardly demonic commanders, intent on fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words. So his soldiers ran away. So after his soldiers ran away, I'm going to flip the pages because I've actually read you the summary for everything. I'll just describe a little bit of the fight with Indra. Yes, we talked about him throwing the club to Airavat, and Airavat fell with Lord Indra on his back. And then it says, when he saw Indra's carrier elephant thus fatigued and injured, when he saw Indra morose behind his carrier, had been harmed in that way, the great soul Vritrasura, following religious principles, refrained from again striking Indra with the club. So he was following the rules. That was quite good. He's supposed to be an Asur. Taking this opportunity, Indra touched the elephant with his nectar-producing hand, thus relieving the animal's pain and curing its injuries. Oh, wow. So the blood that the elephant was spilling, all Lord Indra had to do was just hold his hand over it, the injury, and cure it straight away. We must remember actually that Lord Indra also has the Narayan Kavacha. He's been given the Narayan Kavacha by the brother of Vritrasura. So then the elephant and the Indra both stood silently. And O king, when the great hero Vritrasura saw Indra, the enemy, the killer of his brother, standing before him with a thunderbolt in his hand, desiring to fight, Vritrasura remembered how Indra had cruelly killed his brother. Thinking of Indra's sinful activities, he became mad with lamentation and forgetfulness. Laughing sarcastically, he spoke as follows. Shri Vritrasura. Here he is addressed as Shri Vritrasura. He who has killed a Brahman, he who has killed his spiritual master, indeed he who has killed my brother is now, by good fortune, standing before me face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one, when I pierce your stone-like heart with my trident, I shall be freed from my debt to my brother. Only for the sake of the living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother. So that's what he's telling Indra. He said, you just wanted to live in the heavenly planets, and that's why you killed my brother. I mean, that's really bad. And his brother is a spiritual master and a Brahmin. So that actually was a very bad thing that Lord Indra had done. A self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahman who had been appointed as your chief priest. He was your spiritual master, but although you entrusted him with the performance of your sacrifice, you later mercilessly severed his heads from his body the way one butchers an animal. This is what Lord Indra did to his brother. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Deprived of all these good qualities by the reaction of your fruitive activities, you are to be condemned even by the man-eaters, Rakshasas. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident. And after you die with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your body. Wow. So this is a battle. And he told Lord Indra that you are naturally cruel. And he was like, explaining what he's going to do, and there's all these battles happen. Anyway, then he throws, he's actually telling Indra, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? So he's challenging them. Why don't you throw your thunderbolt at me? Because your club was useless. So this is all, the language of soldiers on the battlefield. And then he admits, he says, Oh Indra, king of heaven, the thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by Lord Vishnu. So he knows. And the strength of Dadichi's austerities. Since you have come here to kill me in accordance with Lord Vishnu's order, there is no doubt that I shall be killed. So he knows that I shall be killed by a release of your thunderbolt. Lord Vishnu has sided with you. Therefore, your victory, opulence, and all good qualities are assured. So he knows, by the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed from material bondage. So he's actually welcoming it. I shall be, okay, so we are almost finished. So I'm just gonna cut, to the end. So he's actually telling him that he's going to die. So why don't you? So in the end, Lord Indra cuts off his hands, Vritrasura's hands, by the thunderbolt. And what Vritrasura does is he opens his mouth really wide. The jaw hits the ground, and the top of his mouth, it hits, the like sky, as big as the sky, and he swallows Indra along with Airavat inside his abdomen. So Lord Indra gets swallowed inside his body, Vritrasura. And, at that time, all the demigods and Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, everybody, they get very anxious that, see, Lord Indra has been swallowed by Vritrasura, even though he doesn't have any hands. Without the hands, he's still able to swallow Indra whole. But because Lord Indra was covered by the Narayan Kavacha, and he had the thunderbolt, he had the gyan, the knowledge to pierce out of his abdomen with the thunderbolt. So Lord Indra came piercing out of Vritrasura's abdomen. So basically, and then he took the thunderbolt and he cut his head, or tried to cut his head. But Vritrasura was so powerful. He was so powerful that it took 1 year for that thunderbolt to sever his head. So for 360 days, the thunderbolt weapon was severing his head. So it was basically after 1 year that Vritrasura's head was able to be decapitated. And then he died. After that, obviously, what happened is here Lord Indra has committed the sin of killing another Brahmin. So after Vritrasura was basically killed, all the demigods were happy, they were very jubilant, but none of them were talking to Lord Indra, and they were wondering why was Lord Indra quiet. It's because Lord Indra was being chased by the reaction of killing a Brahmin. It was like this old woman with like a witch, and she was smelling, and she was she had tuberculosis and diseased, and she was wearing torn gray really dirty clothes and very old, and her breath smelled like fish or something, and she was chasing Lord Indra everywhere. That was the reaction personified of killing a Brahmin. So Lord Indra knew that now he's going to have to do these penances. So Lord Indra ran everywhere. Finally, he took shelter in the Manasarovar, where Lord Vishnu's wife, Mahalakshmi, resides. So Goddess Lakshmi Devi resided in that Manasarovar in the lotus flowers. So what Lord Indra did was he hid himself in the fibers of the stem of the lotus, and that way that reaction personified of killing a Brahmin couldn't get him. So there he meditated, and what Agni Dev did was, the oblations in the yagna, the fire, was able to bring those oblations to Lord Indra, but he couldn't really enter the water. So basically Lord Indra was starving. But anyway, in the meantime, while Lord Indra was hiding from this reaction of killing a Brahmin, the heavenly kingdom was basically unattended, and there was no king, there was no Indra. So there was this person who was qualified. His name was Nahusha, and he was qualified enough to be the king of the heavenly planets. So they gave him Lord Indra's position, but he became really proud and arrogant, and he was insulting, and then he started making indecent proposals to Lord Indra's wife Sachi. And so Sachi was, as soon as he tried to enjoy Lord Indra's wife, the Brahmins cursed him straight away, and Nahusha became a serpent. And so the Brahmins went back to collect Lord Indra, but what happened was Lord Indra, while he was in the Manasarovar, he was worshipping Lord Vishnu, the whole time. And because he had taken shelter and worshipping Lord Vishnu, he was able to reduce the reaction of killing a Brahmin. So these things, when one offends a Brahmin or tries to kill a Brahmin, the way, like we had discussed before, not just circumambulate Srimati Tulsi Devi, but also to be a very strong devotee of Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna. In other words, worship Lord Krishna directly. So take shelter with Lord Krishna. So that is what Lord Indra did, and he was able to come up back to the heavenly planets, where the Brahmins will actually put him back in his position after performing the Ashwamedh, which is the horse sacrifice. So that was the end of this story, where Lord Indra was reinstated to his throne after committing the sin of killing a Brahmana, after committing the sin of a spiritual master. He was able to take shelter with Lord Vishnu. That is what the conclusion of this all is, that whenever we commit any sin, we have to do the penance, the austerities. We have to worship Lord Vishnu. We have to get the mercy of Srimati Radharani, or in Lord Indra's case, Goddess Lakshmi Devi. And then he was given shelter by the Brahmins, and he was asked to do the Ashwamedh Yagna. So a lot of things happened. I mean, his wife was basically being attacked by Nahusha. So many people were killed. He was always in anxiety. So one must never, ever kill or a Brahmin, obviously, or offend a Brahmin, or try to offend, or cause shame or disrepute to a Brahmin. Brahmin means someone who is taken shelter with Lord Krishna. It can also mean a Vaishnav or a Vaishnavi. Vaishnavi also comes in that category. Generally speaking, Vaishnavis are overlooked. because ladies take a back seat sometimes. So they think, okay, well, if we if we cause some problems or whatever, offense to a Vaishnavi, then that doesn't count. Actually it does count, because they have also taken shelter with Lord Krishna. Because Srila Prabhupada did not discriminate. He gave initiations, Brahmin initiations, to both Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis alike. In other words, male and females alike. So they are on equal platform. Even though ladies, women are considered to be the weaker sex or something, and generally, but as soon as they become Krishna conscious, then they get the same platform, equality. So depending on their sadhana, their bhakti, their qualification, obviously depends on their qualification. However, once they have been given shelter by Lord Krishna, then we have to be very careful of not offending a devotee. They become a devotee of Lord Krishna, whether they are a child, they are a woman, or they are a man, or a senior like in age. So we have to be very careful. Always take a shelter with Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and continue with the Bhakti Yoga and chant Hare Krishna and ask for seva. I will stop over there. This is the end of my 3 week classes. Almost time for me to go. So thank you for listening. We will start a brand new topic in the next classes on every Friday. Let me do some research, and let me see what else I can talk about on next Friday. So thank you very much for attending and listening. I wish you all a very happy evening, and Hare Krishna. Wow.